Hello, everyone. This is Caren Glasser, and welcome to this episode of The Passion Point. And I'm really excited to have my guest on with me today, Jay Samit. We have been friends for years and years and years, and it's great to reconnect with him and have him on the show. He is the CEO of the world's leading multiscreen video company, SeaChange International. He's a dynamic entrepreneur and intrepreneur. I'm going to talk about that, what an intrepreneur is, who is widely recognized as one of the world's leading experts on disruption and innovation. He's described by Wire magazine as having the coolest job in the industry. I don't know, I think this is a pretty cool job too, Jay. He raises hundreds of millions of dollars for startups, sells companies to Fortune 500 firms. He transforms entire industries, revamps government institutions. I'm exhausted. And for 3 decades continues to be the forefront of global trends. Everyone from the Pope to the president calls on Samit to orchestrate positive change in this era of endless innovation. And his new book, Disrupt You. Oh my gosh, Jay, I just said that wrong. Disrupt You, actually, and you are disrupting us as well by putting this book out. Just was released last Tuesday, and it's already number 28 on the Amazon Best Books, and he's actually the best book of the month, his book as well. So I'm excited to welcome Jay, and you can tell I'm just like vibrating here. I'm excited to welcome Jay into the Passion Point. How are you this morning?
I'm terrific. Thanks for having me, Caren.
Well, we're delighted that you're here, and we're just going to kick it off right now. We're going to talk about the definition of passion first. So Webster's Dictionary says that passion is an intense driving or overmastering feeling or conviction. That's what Webster says. What does Jay say? What's passion to you?
Passion is what keeps you up at night and makes you never want to fall asleep. Passion is why I don't play golf or do all the other things. I want to change the world. If you believe you only have one shot at life, you have to ask yourself a basic question every day. Are you living life, or are you just paying bills until you die? And that should drive you to really want to figure out what you want to achieve. And so Disrupt You is all about helping people take the blinders off, see themselves in a different light, and see how much impact that they can have, either financially, socially, or for the greater good.
That's a great definition. And I know that you have been on quite the journey from the point of which you started to work and how you have come all the way up to where you are today. So can you just kind of catch us up on where you've been, where you are now, and how passion is driving you to continue the good work that you're doing?
Sure. So I was lucky enough to get involved in the internet in the late 1970s. Nobody knew what we were doing, and the whole world came to computers in the home, and now we have mobile devices. And what I realized is we now are one click away from 6 billion consumers. So you only have to be right for a nanosecond to be a self-made billionaire in your 20s. But we're still teaching people this world of go get that corporate job and you're going to have security. And it's wrong. The world has been disrupted by change and innovation. So you can either look at all this change as an obstacle or as an opportunity. So I got in some of the early days of seeing what the internet could be, seeing what e-commerce could be, creating the first digital music that was downloaded, working with the Steve Jobs and the Bill Gates and all these people that transformed our world. And I saw a pattern. And the pattern was everybody wants to change the world, but most people don't think about changing themselves. So change starts with disrupting. And self-disruption is akin to getting plastic surgery, except you're the surgeon. You have to really take off all the things that society told you you can't do and realize that you are as limitless as the universe. And this isn't puffery. There are now the tools to plug into that anybody has the same advantage as a large corporation, but you don't have the baggage that they do. So all that life is about is solving problems. And if you can solve problems for more people, you get financially rewarded. So the bigger the problems in your life, the more successful you'll be.
Well, yeah, and you talk about that in your book, that whether you're selling dog food or software or whatever you're selling, you're not really selling the product, you're selling the solution to the problem, right?
Right. I'll give you a great example of one of the stories in the book. A woman got a sales job in Florida, and it was a conservative company, and she was required to wear pantyhose. And if you've ever been in the humidity in Florida, that can't be fun. And she wanted to wear open-toe sandals and look, nice. And pantyhose make your toes look stupid. So she started cutting the toes, doing different stuff, and she finally figured out a way to make it work. And she went to every maker that she could find, and salesperson in the company, and they all told her she was an idiot. They ripped up her business card. She had no money. She went into a bookstore and got Patents for Dummy and wrote her own patent. And the name of her company today is Spanx, and she's a billionaire. So it's about solving problems for others. Have you ever been, Caren, at an airport when your flight got canceled?
Oh, yes, way too many times.
So you sit there and you go, oh, there's nothing that I can do. What a disruptor does is they look around and say, wow, there's a whole lot of people that need to get from point A to point B. And Richard, who I worked with, was sitting in Puerto Rico wanting to get with his girlfriend somewhere, figured out how many people, went over, chartered a plane, held up a sign, and for $39 you'd go on the plane. He and his girlfriend got to fly for free, and that's how a music executive who didn't go to college started Virgin Airlines. Richard Branson's flight got canceled. So it's about taking control of the opportunities. And what's so important about when you focus on passion is that I've yet to meet a person in a negative state of mind that comes up with a good idea. So that power of positive thinking is not a cliche. You know, waking up every day saying that the future can be better and I will make it so. I mean, I've predicted and worked with trends and gotten to sit down with, Steve Jobs, the president, and all these great things, not because I'm special, but because I continue to look at all the opportunity out there as opposed to as the obstacles.
That's just awesome. And you're obviously very adept at doing this. And you probably are a very good teacher of this as well, because I know that people need to get out of their own way most of the time. So when people are trying to find their passion, or they've lost their passion, or they're in this environment where they've lost their job, and now they're calling themselves entrepreneurs, because to say that you're unemployed doesn't always feel as good. So to say you're an entrepreneur, wouldn't you agree? I mean, I did it. I did it when I left my job in LA and moved up to Napa and realized I had not a clue as to what I was going to do next. I said, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to go to networking meetings and do whatever. What's your thoughts about entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs? So what is an intrapreneur first? And let's talk about that.
So an entrepreneur is somebody that sets up a company inside a big company. So if a major company, so the music industry was facing tremendous change. They spent 100 years selling round things, and all of a sudden people could steal any song, and they went from a $40 billion industry off a cliff. And so the world's largest music company, EMI, brought me in as president, and I said, I'm not a music guy. And the chairman said, we've got 11,000 music guys, what we don't have is a future. So what I did, which is the same thing that I teach people to do in the book, is to break down the value chain of what is the business. And the business wasn't selling records. The business was getting music in the hands of consumers. So why not try subscriptions? Why not try iTunes? So at the same time that Napster was getting everybody to steal music, and we couldn't sell a single song for $1 anywhere in the world, we were able to sell 10 seconds of a song for $1 called a ringtone. And the first year we did $1.6 billion in ringtones. So it's about deconstructing and seeing where the value is. People do this with restaurants in the book, with clothing lines, with reimagining. So it's not just calling yourself an entrepreneur or starting a business. It's really the mindset that goes with that. So we all will have things that fail in our life. But the difference between failing and failure is when you fail, you learn what doesn't work. Failure is when you give up, So there were two guys that had this idea when I was getting started. What if we hook up all the traffic lights in cities to a PC to synchronize them to reduce traffic? Genius idea. And Bill and Paul raised money, and nobody got it. City planners didn't understand this. They didn't get it. So Bill Gates and Paul Allen's first company, TrackYourData, went out of business.
My
goodness,
I didn't know that.
Their second company was called Microsoft. It did a little bit better. So there are dozens and dozens of stories. Henry Ford went bankrupt several times. His third company at 54 was Ford Motor Company. Colonel Sanders didn't sell his first franchise till he was in his 60s. So it's never too late to start. All the time when people come up to me and I counsel a lot of startups, when's the best time to start their business? I always tell them last year was the best time to start it. Now's the second best time.
Right. And that sometimes it's just a matter of starting, of a book that I really like is called Go for No, and they talk about the whole concept of failing, and that you're failing your way to success. It's not, you've got no here and you've got yes here, and somewhere in the middle is, you're going to fail over and over again until Thomas Edison. How many times did he try to create?
Thousands. But here's the key. So many people will listen to the voice of people that gave up on their dreams telling you to give up on yours. Would you rather work 80 hours a week at something that you're passionate about, or 40 hours a week at something that you hate? And it really comes down to, what do you want to achieve? And this book, Disrupt You, is not theory or something that's ethereal. It's practical, step by step, even if it's just to get a better job. Today, there are thousands of resumes going in for each job. There are softwares that scan and do it. If you're not using the right words, the keywords that the software algorithm is looking for, you'll never get that face-to-face time to show how you're a great individual. Do you know what those words are? The software does. I put in the chart that they use, so you know which words will separate you from the pile. So it's that very practical ways that dozens of people have become billionaires, and they were so generous with their time in this book. And, it's really, these aren't great people. These are people that achieve great things because they didn't give up.
Right, absolutely, and for that reason alone, I know that people are going to want to read this book and go out and get it and have conversations around it and have conversations with themselves around it as well to grow. I like quotes. Quotes are something that I start my day with, actually, is a good quote, and I'll go searching all over and curating all over the internet to find something that speaks to me. And today, from Alexander Graham Bell, he says, "When one door closes, another door opens, but we so often look so long and so regretfully upon the closed door that we do not see the ones which open for us." What is a favorite? I like that one.
Absolutely. If you keep on reliving yesterday, then you gave up on tomorrow. Right. And everybody gets in these patterns, and the secret is people can't figure out how to get there. In the book, I talk about how you pack your Disruptor suitcase. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Work backwards, okay? If you knew you wanted to be a surgeon 5 years in the future, then you got to get to med school. And how do you get to med school? And you can do the steps. So you don't have to know all the steps of the journey to be successful. Reid Hoffman, one of the smartest people on the planet, who created PayPal and LinkedIn and was the first investor in Facebook and Zynga and all these great companies, and wrote the intro to Disrupt You. Reid has a great expression that entrepreneurs jump off a cliff and assemble the airplane on the way down. And the point is, you don't have to know all the details. No one does. And here's the reason. Success doesn't come from this great business plan. You're not Doc Brown having the eureka moment for the flux capacitor. What happens is you decide you're going to go on a journey and explore a topic, an area that you think you're going to be well. And when you're in there and you've gone farther than anybody has, you'll have insights that no one else thought of. So I'll give you a great example. 10 years ago, three guys came up with the most brilliant, flawless, can't go wrong idea ever. It's called Tune In, Hook Up. What if we made online dating, now that there's broadband, instead of looking at a still picture of somebody, you have a video. Now you can hear their voice, get a sense of them. Tune In Hookup's going to be a huge success. They built the site, they get the videos up there, and guess what? Nobody wants to date these people. The business is going nowhere. But they look at the data, and they see that people are sending their friends to look at these videos because they're kind of funny to look at. So they changed the name of their company to YouTube, and they sell for $2 billion.
I could sit here and just listen to you for hours, because these stories are so interesting, but more to the point, listen to the companies that have come out of the first reincarnations of all these ideas. Do you have a favorite quote?
A favorite quote? Harry Houdini's once said, "Imagination is the key that sets me free." And really, that's what drives you. That if you can imagine it, you can make it happen. And it really starts with having that idea and moving forward. And it can be the most simple insight. And Disrupt You, I talked to dozens and dozens of billionaires. A friend of mine, a guy who I've become friends with and sit on board with, was sitting one day and saw the dogs, like you have with you, were sleeping in the house, not tied up in the backyard like a barn animal, okay? And he said, wow, if a dog's in the house, it's a member of the family. You would feed a member of the family better than you would a farm animal. So he came up with this idea of what if he could make premium dog food, a better quality dog food. And his dog food wholesale was more expensive than the retail of the big guys. Everybody laughed at him until he sold Iams dog food for $2 billion to Procter & Gamble, their largest acquisition ever. He was the sole owner. He had no partners. He had no debt. He had no investors. What he had was passion. Passion is the thing that will get you through it because everything else can be hired. You don't have to be the engineer. You don't have to be the CFO. And in Disrupt You, when we teach you how to break down your internal value chain, you'll see what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. Weaknesses are nothing to be ashamed of. Weaknesses are, wow, let me hire somebody on the team that is good at something that I'm not. Nobody built a billion-dollar company all by themselves.
Right.
And so it's really about opening your mind and saying, wow, so here's what I teach my students. And I'm lucky enough to teach at the largest engineering university, USC. And I take MBAs and engineers and put them together. And the first assignment is, every day I want you to walk around and find 3 problems in your life. The first day, it's pretty easy. I hated the traffic this morning, whatever it might be. As you get through the month, you have to look in more detail. And by the end of the month, you have 90 ideas. Many of these are billion-dollar ideas. Which one affects the most people? Which one are you passionate about solving? 2 kids in Tel Aviv, about as far as you can get from Silicon Valley on planet Earth, hated traffic in Tel Aviv, which is bad, but nothing compared to the 405. And they're sitting there and they're saying, wait a second, the phone company knows where my phone is, knows where the phone in the other car is. What if we wrote software to tell this car to go left and this one to go right? And that was the basis of Waze. You don't have to be an engineer to come up with the idea. Waze sold for billions of dollars. Were you in traffic? Yes. Did it bother you? Yes. Did you brainstorm about how to solve it? No. That's the next step. And really learning how to capture that value that you create with ideas. So what frustrated me about the world is we still teach this mythology that you're going to get this good job and get that gold watch. Well, security doesn't rob ambition. The illusion of security robs ambition. Fortune 500, that term was invented in 1955, 60 years ago. And they picked the 500 biggest, most stable companies on earth. Only 57 survived, are still on the list. So had you gone the safe route, there's no gold watch. Your career will be disrupted. It's up to you to take that as a great opportunity to get more challenges and create something great, or to sit there and go, woe is me, my job wiped out. And so many of the stories of success in this book are people that had no choice. You had a failed radio station. There was a failed radio station. They couldn't sell an ad to save their life, right? They knew they had listeners, but nobody to do it. So the station manager said, just go down to this used inventory place and just buy me something, okay? And we'll just talk about it on air, and we'll prove that we can sell something. So they got some avocado-colored can openers. And they talked about how great the can opener was. They didn't have a pick, pack, and ship. They said, you have to come down with cash. Come down to the radio station. Here's our address, and you can pick up the can openers. And they sold out all the can openers. And fast forward, changed the name of it to Home Shopping Network and became billionaires. So failure is not failing. You just have to look at what you have, break it down. You're the only person with your point of view on the planet. You have a unique advantage. What are you seeing that no one else sees?
So I love the actual action step that you just told people to do. It's a great nugget, and I hope that our listeners and our viewers are going to take that to heart. Just doing that one task every day, the 3, finding those 3 problems that you can, and then having 90 by the end of the day. I mean, the opportunities are endless. Where do you think technology is going? I have read, from the panic, oh my gosh, technology is actually going to think for themselves, and they're going to run our world, to, oh, technology is still just a flash and it's going to go away. What is your thought about technology and where we're going?
So all these world leaders and corporations always ask me how I accurately predict the future. It's because I hang out with the people that are creating it. So here's what I can tell you. 3D printing, which isn't just plastic, it's metals, it's food, it's meat, it's pharmaceuticals, it's all kinds of stuff. 3D printing will wipe out 320 million jobs over the next 5 years. Autonomous vehicles, you think of that as a self-driving car. There are self-driving 18-wheel trucks on the Autobahn in Germany today. Truck drivers, the most common job on tax returns. So you're talking about millions of jobs lost there. Automation will replace 40% of all jobs in the US by 2020. That's only 5 years away. So disruption is here. You know, if you want to stand still on the road of progress, you're going to get run over by a self-driving vehicle. But ask yourself this. If you suddenly came down with something, Caren, would you go to a doctor, let's say that was your same age, that hadn't learned anything new since they graduated med school?
Absolutely not.
Every drug that's in the market is new, right? Compared to, 30 years ago when they got out of med school, or 20 years ago, whenever it was. That's the same for all of us. We have to live with lifelong learning. We have to continue to reinvent. When I was asked by the president, could I get the internet into every classroom in the US? I was like, yes. This was my passion at the time. I wanted to take Brown versus the Board of Education and take separate but equal and actually turn it to actual equal. And within 18 months, we got every classroom wired without $1 taxpayer money and transformed the opportunity to succeed. But it's just an opportunity. We all have the same opportunity. So, Warren Buffett and you have the same 24 hours in the day.
That's right. That's true. But so what do we tell our young people that are going to college or not? And you're telling us that within 5 years, basically, a lot of jobs are going to go away because they're going to be automated and so forth and so on. So where do our young people go? What would you suggest? Where would you direct them so that they're prepared for the disruption that's happening? So
you have tremendous knowledge in university. You also have tremendous knowledge that you can get online and everywhere else. What you have to start thinking about is not that there's going to be some job waiting for you, but what is something that you can create, own, and develop, okay? It's not up to society. So we've had a jobless recovery in the US since 2008. Corporate, top 500 corporations have reduced 1 million jobs, and all the job growth that has got us out of this has come from startups. And that's why I work with incubators and accelerators, and VCs have doubled the amount of money over 2014 to 2015 that they're putting into the market. And yet the Kickstarter, the crowdfunding, is greater now than all venture capital. Then you add on top of that you now have the new sharing economy. What are the Ubers of this, the Ubers of that you can do in your neighborhood? Funny question for you, Caren. Do you own an electric drill?
Yes, I do.
Okay. According to the Electric Drill Association, you will drill for a total of 13 minutes over the life of that product. Here's the new bookcase from IKEA. 13 minutes. Does it really make sense to own something, store it, move it, box it that you're going to use for 13 minutes?
No, and I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And I have this conversation with my husband on a regular basis. He needs to own everything. And I'm like, well, you're only going to use it probably not even 13 minutes,
But let's take it to the next level. Your car spends most of its time parked. So software can now solve these things. Why does each person need a lawnmower, et cetera? So the sharing economy just domestically is going to be $24 billion. So I have a word that I use called SOLO-MO, social, location, and mobile. If you can figure out a business that combines those three, you now know where people are, how to get them, and you're walking around with more power in your pocket than we had to get a man on the moon. So you have technology. It's the first screen you wake up with. You don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to be 20-something from the best school. You just have to say, wow. I was on a radio show this week with a kid that started a dog walking piece of software. So, I need somebody to walk my dog today. Boom, it's like Uber for dog walking. He got $5 million already. His sole experience was walking dogs, okay? I've come across teenagers that have found cures for cancer. A 14-year-old girl made a neural network that detects breast cancer better than anything that has been in the market, 99.9% accurate, and is now saving 40,000 lives a year. Boy, it sure makes me feel like I'm wasting my life.
I was just going to say that. Wow.
So my soapbox is, if we have 2 billion people coming into this market, When you look at what's happened in ISIS, when you look at what's happening with Greek economy, when you look at what happened in Baltimore and Ferguson, this isn't race, culture, or religion. This is massive unemployment for people under 30. So unless we can teach people to disrupt their thinking and change what they expect of the world and what the world expects of them, we're going to have a very unstable world. And selfishly, you and I want more entrepreneurs. Why? Because their sole business is solving problems, which makes our life better. I mean, next time you sit down in a movie, and it's one of those big blockbuster ones that you're bored for a second, just remember, somebody who's willing to spend $200 million to entertain you for 2 hours. How wonderful to live in a world where that's possible. So you can really make a global business overnight. It's really about solving a problem, and Disrupt You is about getting you on that path.
I love what you're saying. I totally love what you're saying. I have jumped in hook, line, and sinker with the new live streaming capabilities that we have on our phone between Periscope and Nomad Scope, I think it's called, and Meerkat and all. And so I use Periscope, and it's all about communicating and creating that relationship with my end user. I do something called 5 for 5. So I'll go 5 tips in 5 minutes to provide that value. So I love technology. I love jumping into the next trend. And I'm going to be following you because you are right there in the midst of all of it. I encourage our readers, our listeners, our viewers to go out and get this book, Disrupt You. Jay, any last minute thoughts that you'd like to share with my community?
Yeah, two quick things, because you've been so generous with your time. First of all, like a shower, you need motivation every day. So I tweet out motivation around entrepreneurship and stats and stuff at Jay Samit every day, and I've got 100,000 entrepreneurs around the world that follow me, and it's a responsibility and a lot of fun. And then the second is I want to give a gift to everybody listening, which is I have a companion workbook that lets you take notes and go through that journey of writing down your ideas and following along with the book. And if anybody wants to email me or reach out to me on Twitter or Facebook or wherever, I will email them the companion's 40-odd page workbook that will help them organize their thoughts. So
that's very generous, and thank you. Thank you.
And they can go to jsamit.com, and you'll put that, I'm sure, on your website.
Right. Absolutely. So as always, when we have these interviews, I just want you to make sure you look down below in the run sheets. We'll have a lot of notes on what we chatted about today, as well as Jay's call to actions, his free gift. And there'll be a link there to go buy the book as well, because I think everyone should have this book. Young people, old people alike. I'm an old person, so I can personally speak that you're going to enjoy this book. Jay, I want to thank you for your time today. I know that you're busy. I know you're doing interviews all over the place. I want to congratulate you on the launch of your book and to be number 28 and the best business book of the month. I mean, it's amazing and wonderful. And I am just so happy that you took the time to be with me today. So thank you again. And I want to thank our viewers, because we know that you have a choice as to where you spend your time. And I want to thank our viewers for spending that time with us today. So as always, have a great day. Go out and give somebody an awesome day. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of The Passion Point. Goodbye, everyone.